Hello YouTube family, Brandy from Itty Bitty Berry Farm, and today I'm going to talk to you about a sourdough starter and also how to make sourdough biscuits with your starter. So here I have a starter that I've been feeding for the last week. I did get this recipe from Andrea over at VW Family Farm, and it was kind of the most basic one that I could find. Even with that, I have murdered 2 other batches of this, so this is my 3rd try. But basically, it's just flour and water. You can find a lot of different versions of this online, and I just went with the simplest one I could find. I need simple. So there's quite a few online that talk about weighing this as you're feeding it and cutting it and all that, and I just kind of thought that was a little too labor intensive for me. And sourdough starters have been around for centuries, and I didn't really picture the pioneers weighing out their starter. So basically what I started with was a 1/4 cup of water and 3/8 cup of flour. That's what I started it with, and then after 12 hours I cut it in half. So I basically just took out half of what was in here, and then I added the same back. So 1/4 cup water, 3/8 cup flour, and I did that every 12 hours. So every time you get into it, every 12 hours, first you discard half of it, and then you feed the other half. So what you're doing is you're kind of just feeding that. You want that bacteria to kind of grow in there. It's a fermented bread, sourdough. I think it's healthier for you than regular white bread. Of course, anything fermented is good for your guts and or your gut, not your guts. And then you just kind of keep the lid on it really loose, and what you're looking for each time you feed it, you want it to have bubbles in there. You want it to kind of have like a yeasty type smell, and once you get it to the point where it's basically doubling in size every 12 hours, maybe it's doming a little bit, definitely has bubbles, has that great smell, then you're ready for bread. So I don't think I'm quite ready for bread yet, so I was going to do pancakes tonight, but then I didn't have any butter. So I'm going to do some biscuits instead, and see where we go from there. So it does take about a week depending on the weather. Right now, being that it's January, it's a little cooler in the house, plus Tate's home, so we don't get to have the house really hot. And so kind of the cooler it is, maybe the longer it might take. But once you get it to the point where it's ready for bread, then you just store it in the refrigerator. You don't have to feed it once you have it in the fridge. And then you just do have to kind of plan ahead if you're going to use it. You want to take it out of the fridge maybe in the morning or the night before, if you're going to want to make pancakes in the morning, or if you're going to make bread later in the afternoon, take it out in the morning, let it sit out for about 5 or 6 hours, let it get to room temperature, feed it, so divide it, feed it, use it. So this guy hasn't made it to the fridge yet, but he is still alive, so that's more than I can say for his past 2 buddies. So anyway, what we're gonna do is I've already put in 2 1/4 cups flour in this bowl, and also 2 tablespoons of coconut oil. A lot of the recipes call for butter or what have you. Again, I just kind of searched around until I found a recipe that had what I actually have in my kitchen tonight. And I did find that over at Southern Lady 44. Thank you very much. This is where I got this recipe from. So again, 2 1/4 cups flour, 2 tablespoons of coconut oil, and then I do not have a pastry cutter, but I do have a masher. So all you're going to do is just kind of work all this together. You're going to get down to where you have it just kind of lumpy, but it's, for the most part mixed together. Okay, so I've got that pretty well blended and kind of married in there. You can also use Crisco oil or any other type like lard or anything that you may have. And then I'm going to add, I already have my dry ingredients in here. I have 1 teaspoon of salt, 1 teaspoon baking soda, 1 teaspoon baking powder, and then also 1 teaspoon of sugar. I would prefer to maybe use honey, but this is again the first time I've made this, so I'm just going to go with what is recommended on the recipe. So I will put that in here and blend those together. And then the other, kind of one of the last items that we're going to add is, it called for 1/2 cup of buttermilk, which I also do not have. Surprise, surprise. I really do go grocery shopping. But you can substitute 1/2 cup of plain yogurt. So I'm going to do that. 1/2 cup of plain yogurt. And then we're going to add 1.5 cups of our sourdough starter. Now I did already feed this guy. I have in the last 2 days, again I started this about 7 days ago. In the last 2 days I've slacked off. I do keep this next to my coffee maker just to remind me in the morning to feed it, and then it just sits out on the counter during, so at night I see it, no problem, I remember to feed it. That does not explain how I murdered 2 other batches, but anyway, we'll keep that secret. Okay, so we're going to add 1.5 cups of this live starter, and let's see how we do here. So mine is maybe a little bit more runny than others I've seen, so we may need to add more flour to our mixture here just to get these biscuits to kind of take off. You never want to use all of your starter because then you have to start all over. So kind of the beauty of the starter is just letting it go and go and go, letting it keep fermenting and building up all those great properties in there. So just gonna stir this up, and yeah, so you just kind of also go with your gut a little bit. Everyone's starter, your starter might be a little bit thicker, might be a little bit runnier. Mine's fairly runny, and I'm not sure if that partly is because of the temperature in the kitchen or what have you. So so I'm just going to mix this up as good as possible, and actually once this is all in here it might be okay. In this case, since I'm using yogurt instead of buttermilk, if I find that this is maybe too thick, then I will just add some more of that plain yogurt, and it's kind of seeming like it maybe will be a little bit too thick. So yeah, so I'll add some yogurt in here and just try to get it to the right consistency. It's going to end up being still a bit sticky. Okay, so I've grabbed some more yogurt, and I think I'm going to add probably another 1/2 cup or so just to see what that does to it. And if you haven't already, please subscribe to our channel and hit that bell so that you're alerted every time we post a video. We are just kind of starting out, and I think we joined about 3 or 4 weeks ago, and we're now up to a massive 10 subscribers. So I know there's more of you out there watching, so please subscribe and you can keep up with what we're doing here. So Okay, so I added again about another half a cup, so total I've done about a cup of yogurt. Again, I have not done this recipe before, so I'm wondering if I should add more yogurt or maybe more starter. I think I will go with a little more yogurt, and I am going to go with a little more starter. Again, I don't want to run out of starter. So but I think this is gonna do the trick here. So I don't know if you can see that, but it's fairly sticky. Okay, I just want to kind of show you the consistency here. So it's a bit sticky. So what we're gonna do next is kind of separate this out. Take a little clump, and then we're going to actually roll it in some flour and then put it onto a baking sheet. Okay, so I have greased a little pan. If I had a cast iron skillet, I would be putting them in a cast iron pan. And so I'm just going to take kind of a ball of this dough, maybe about like that. And I'm going to drop it in the flour, only because it is really, really sticky. So I'm just rolling it in flour, and then I'm going to come out with this little biscuit. So I'm just going to set it in the pan, and then just kind of keep going like that until I have this pan all the way full. Oh, I'm excited. Okay, so I just wanted to show you what we ended up with here. So here are our biscuits, and on the recipe she recommended also maybe topping these with some melted butter, which again, I do not have melted butter. So I'm just going to stick these in the oven now at 375, and I did have some batter left over, so this did about 9 biscuits, and you can probably get I don't know, maybe close to 18 biscuits out of this recipe. So anyway, so we'll put them in the oven now at 375, and then I'll come back and check on them in about 12 minutes and see where they're at. Okay, so here it's been about 20 minutes, and these look like they should be done. They smell absolutely delicious. So we're gonna give these a try. Technically I'm on keto right now, so I am not supposed to try them. So don't tell anyone. Okay, so we're just gonna cut this open. Super hot. Oh, that looks yummy. Oh, wish I wasn't on keto, so I could eat this whole darn thing. Okay, well, let's give at least one little bite. Again, don't tell anybody. That is so good. I'm pretty proud of myself. My very first sourdough starter, my first sourdough biscuit. Yeah, this is good stuff. All right, so I highly encourage you to get your starter going and do something with it. Just play around with it, experiment, and until next time, bye.